Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and my toy buddy Noizemaze lent me his $120 resin cast prototype figure. No, really, he did. I know, right? This is the first prototype release of the Biomass Monster, which is itself the first figure on the market from Pat Busey's Biomasters toy line. The goal of this line is to create Glyos-compatible figures with a monstrous aesthetic to contrast with the usual mechanical, technological look of many Glyos-centric toy lines. Kinda like Marty Hansen's Kabuto Mushi, but with more monstrosity. Speaking of which, both Marty Hansen and Matt Dowdy had a hand in assisting Pat with the development of the Biomasters. Hell, Noizemaze picked this up from Marty's booth space at C2E2 2014. There is a definite goal of having this figure move on to PVC mass production, but like many independent toys, it's both raising awareness and funding its own steel mold development through the sales of hand-cast resin prototypes. So let me make this as clear as possible. This is not a production figure. It's a prototype made of a different material than the hoped-for eventual mass production versions. I don't want to have to pull a PA and say this like every 60 seconds, so if you guys could just take that to heart, that would be super helpful, and keep the length of the video down a little bit. The Biomass Monster prototypes are all resin pieces, much like the resin-cast Godbeast prototype pieces I've seen and handled in past. He mixes some pretty good stuff with a friendly sparkle running through the urethane. Just about all these prototypes are made by hand and not done in mass quantities, so this review will be focusing on the sculpt over anything else, since a lot of these colorways are either one-off or custom requested. As it was received, this thing's a sort of bulbous octo-body with far more than 8 protrusions. There are mantis claws, bat wings, bug eyes, and tentacles aplenty. It's friggin' walking on a trio of lobster claws. The Biomass Monster's base build is definitely made to evoke feelings of Cthulhuism, sea monsters, and did I mention the tentacles? There were also 2 spare pieces, another long tentacle, and a small mouthpiece. There's tons of part swapping to be had, putting eyes on lobster claw feet and mouths on faces and tentacles sticking out of mouths, etc. The designer hopes to make even more option parts, like triple-headed tentacles that'd look like they're splitting forth from a single appendage. As for posability, there's a swivel cut at every parts connection. While a lot of this doesn't make for much dynamic posability out of the gate, I do kinda dig the mid-tentacle swivel on the larger tendrilous extremities. Being Glyos compatible means this thing can break down into a number of components, and being a resin prototype means you'll need to do that with a hairdryer and a little bit of care. Once it's rendered in PVC at the mass production level, the Biomass Monster will be shreddable with not a worry in the world about durability. And damn does it shred down into a meaty little parts kit. Segmentable tentacles, mantis and lobster claws, mouths and eyeballs, straight up spikes. The tentacles are by far my favorite parts, as the tips and shafts can come apart for both minor posability and build options. And the bulbous center body piece is no slouch either, as it's covered in Glyos ports. The center mass shape will often be the same on most builds based around this part, but it is the designer's intent to eventually upgrade this piece to swivel and separate along several of the obvious incisions carved into its curvature. The potential of the Biomass Monster prototype is pretty clear. On its own, it could be a highly customizable little Cthulian throwback creature. In the greater Glyos play pattern, it'd offer the ability to show a mutated corruption in existing Glyos figures, allow for a wider range of insectoid creatures to be created in tandem with the Kabuto Mushis, and overall, add a nice squishy aesthetic to one's building parts bin. Hand-cast resin prototype pieces are definitely for enthusiasts and lunatics like Noizemaze, but hopefully Pat Busey, whose name I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, can develop and hone the figure all the way to steel mold production, so a larger audience can get their hands on it in production PVC form. By the way, he's also working on a Biomass Mutant prototype figure. That and any other Biomaster development can be followed on the Biomasters fan page over on the Facebook. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and let's all give @Noizemaze on Twitter a big pat on the back for making this video happen. Now all I have to do is figure out how to get the prototype back to him, and by that I mean figure out how to get him to come over here and pick it up, because I am lazy.